This week, a federal judge overturned Indiana's ban on same-sex marriage. Judge Richard L. Young's ruling says that every federal court to consider the issue recently has reached the same conclusion. Laws prohibiting the celebration and recognition of same-sex marriages are unconstitutional. The fundamental right to marry should not be deprived to some individuals based solely on whom they choose to love. He went on to quote a 1996 Supreme Court decision saying that the history of our Constitution is the story of the extension of constitutional rights and protections to people once ignored and excluded. When news of the ruling broke, couples all over the state lined up to be married. Eric Evans and Adam White were the first Lake County couple to tie the knot.
I received a text message from my friend, so I immediately texted him and said that the ban had been struck down, want to get married. And yeah, I think his response was, sure, we can talk about it tonight. I said, no, right now.
Indiana Attorney General Greg Zeller, with the support of Governor Mike Pence, says he intends to appeal the ruling but will comply with the federal court order while the case moves through the appeals process. The 2014 South Shore Air Show is the latest casualty of the torrential rain that has lately been a staple of Northwest Indiana weather. On Wednesday, Spiros Batistatos, president and CEO of the South Shore Convention and Visitors Authority, announced the cancellation of the air show, citing widespread flooding. More than 10 inches of rain has fallen on Fair Oaks Farm, the site of this year's air show, over the last 30 days, and more is in the forecast. 50,000 to 60,000 people were expected to attend the show. After years of debate, officials from Porter Regional Hospital and the Porter County Assessor's Office have agreed upon the tax burden of the new hospital. During the hospital's first year of operation in 2013, the assessor valued the facility at $244 million. The hospital's legal team appealed that, saying the value was $39 million. That number is far below the $130 million needed to comply with a 10-year tax abatement, which the Porter County Council had previously granted the hospital, prompting the council to declare the health care center non-compliant. On Tuesday, just hours before the council was set to vote on the matter, both parties agreed to the $130 million assessment.
This difficult decision rests squarely on my shoulders, and I'm at peace with the decision that I have made here. I would ask that this board find the hospital in compliance and put this issue in our rearview mirror.
Coming up from 39 million to 130 million is a pretty good run.
The council voted 4-2 to waive the noncompliance ruling for previous years and find the hospital in compliance for the current year. This week, the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority released results of their annual point-in-time homeless count conducted in January. The count is described as a snapshot of homelessness in the state on a particular night. The 2014 count showed a drop of 2% when compared to last year, with 5,971 persons without a home on January 29th. According to IHCDA, there has been a 6% overall decrease in homelessness reported since 2010. The number of homeless households with children decreased by 12% from 2013, with 654 families recorded during the count. However, the number of homeless residents without dependent children increased 6% from last year to 3,827 statewide. Officials say results of the count help in determining how and where to allocate resources to combat homelessness. Congressional leaders honored the anniversary of the Civil Rights Act this week by celebrating the bipartisan efforts lawmakers used to pass the bill in 1964. Lakeshore's Hillary Powell shows how the historic moment is being observed locally.
Thanks, Kristen. While congressional leaders celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy on Tuesday with a posthumous award, one of King's civil rights colleagues marked the anniversary in the region. Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. was in Maryville to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the legislation that outlawed discrimination based on race. Jackson spoke at a gathering for the Indiana Consortium of State and Local Human Rights Agencies. He says the 1972 National Black Political Convention in Gary was a turning point for equality following the bill.
That seemed to be at that time beyond anybody's imagination. Much of the idea came from Mayor Richard Hatcher. No one at that point had the capacity to reach out to Mary Baraka in Newark, and reach out to Karanga in LA, reach out to Andy Young in Atlanta. All these officials came to Gary because of Mayor Hatcher.
At the time of that convention, there were some divisions. Some people were more militant than others. And so today, that is not the problem at all. The problem today is that we have very few militant, truly militant people who will stand up and speak up.
Next week, join Lakeshore Report as we explore how Gary's historic gathering galvanized a new wave of political leaders and what impact the civil rights legislation has made over the past half-century. Up next, 2 separate education facilities in the region are focused on their joint future. Steve Walsh explores how the approval of a new career facility will impact students.
We're talking with Chancellor William Lowe with IUN. You're pairing up with Ivy Tech. Is this an attempt to try to maybe regain some of those students that might have been lost over the last couple of years, now that all the credits from from Ivy Tech now transfer to all of the upper universities like Purdue and IU? You've seen a lot of students going to Ivy Tech. Is this by pairing up with them, or are you hoping to maybe keep them in the pipeline?
Well, certainly we are. The relationship with Ivy Tech and our campus, I think, has been a good one over the years. Many of our, if not most of our transfer students probably do come from Ivy Tech. But I think Indiana University and the state of Indiana see a potential to do even more to enable students to complete bachelor's degrees. And having a good, strong pathway to completing a bachelor's degree is one of the ways we do that. Of course, close working relationships with Ivy Tech are important, but if we can be co-located in the same building on the same campus, this is a way for us to not only familiarize future transfer students with what's available at IU, but we can do joint programming to make sure students are preparing and fully aware of the kind of opportunities to which they can transfer at IU. It's something that with 2 other IU regional campuses at South Bend and Kokomo, we are completing a grant application that will enable us to have a partnership program with Ivy Tech, and Chancellor Coley and Ivy Tech is part of this project, so that we can strengthen even further with support programs, orientations, in order to both encourage and enable
So you want a very close working relationship with Ivy
Absolutely.
Tech wherever possible.
Yep.
Where do you see the role of these, what they used to be called extension campuses, over the next 5 years? You're not only seeing some competition from Ivy Tech at the low end, but you're seeing online programs across the country attracting students. Do you imagine a world 5 years from now where you're still going to see all of those students coming to campus and then going off to work?
Well, we are no longer extension campuses at IU. We have been regional campuses for a long time, and we're fully fledged campuses, part of Indiana University. And we're very central to the planning and future of Indiana University. We serve students who mostly do not go away when they want to attend college. We offer a wide array of programs that particularly enable students to get the kind of not only higher education and liberal skills that are helpful for a successful adult life, but prepare them for the workforce, not only with experiential programs that they'll have when they're part of our programs, but also professionally oriented programs that will take them directly into jobs. IU Northwest has expanded its online programming significantly. We're one of the largest providers of online programming among the regional campuses of IU, and we see ourselves continuing to do that because the key thing to serving the diverse student body of Northwest Indiana is to be flexible and have a lot of options available for them.
Right.
And students still like to come to campus.
They still like to come to campus. Do you think
Right.
that's going to remain the case, though, over time? Especially when you're competing, I guess, now against an IU proper, a Bloomington.
Well, we don't really compete within IU.
All right, Purdue. You certainly compete against Purdue.
Yeah, and the mission at Bloomington is rather different than ours. But what we did research on this when I was a provost in Minnesota, and what we discovered was students still like the idea of being able to come to campus. What they would like more is perhaps fewer trips to campus and more use of the internet. And when they need a fully online course for that term when they can't come to a particular class on a particular day for whatever reason, the online programming enables them to stay enrolled and make progress. So the key to serving a regional campus audience in the future is about being as flexible and adaptable as we possibly can to work around the kind of schedules and demands they have in their lives. And that can involve online programming, but also recognizing students do like to come to campus. They like to meet other students. They like to meet the faculty.
And that's part of what sells the whole university experience.
Exactly.
And that's why you need $45 million buildings if you're going to
Yes,
keep
indeed.
people coming to campus.
Yeah.
I've noticed that we're in at least the second year of offering summer discounts for tuition. Purdue is talking about its tuition freeze for the second year, and of course Ivy Tech is always. Is there a price war going on amongst public universities at this point? And how much do students really look at price when they're shopping around for a school?
Well, first of all, I think particularly at a regional campus, the costs are something that students and their families look at very, very carefully. Fortunately, the IU regional campuses, IU Northwest included, are pretty affordable still. And rather than being a price war, I think what you're really seeing is the public sector universities in Indiana working as hard as they can to stay affordable, to control cost increases. So, for example, you can go to summer session at IU for a 25% discount. The tuition increases we've announced over the last several years have been less than 2%. So that year to year, students will notice very, very little change in the dollar amounts that they are paying for their courses. And this is part of, I think, a concerted effort, not only on the part of the university, but really the Commission for Higher Education and state government in Indiana to keep the publicly supported sector as accessible as possible.
Chancellor William Lowe, thank you. Congratulations on the new building.
Thank you.
And thank you for being on.
Not at all. Thank you.
The General Assembly and State Board of Education have instituted a series of changes to state education policies throughout the past year, including a new type of teaching permit. The Career Specialist Permit allows a person with a 4-year degree, a 3.0 grade point average, and 6,000 hours of work experience to begin teaching while pursuing teacher training. Many current teachers have voiced opposition to the permit, saying that it lacks pedagogical training, and allowing educators to begin teaching without sufficient preparation could be detrimental to both students and the new teacher. I spoke with a local professor who helps prepare new educators about what pedagogical training is and why educators believe it is important for success in the classroom.
I call it expert amnesia, right? So you get good at something, you forget what it's like to be a novice. And so pedagogical training helps you to be mindful of that, because you've got to pay attention to psychology. You have to think about what the students think like, how they understand things, what kind of words they trip over when they read a passage, and those kinds of things. And so it is part of the essential prerequisites, I think, for teaching. This rationale that that the customer will sort it out and determine the quality, right, is clearly based on the notion of a market economy, right? So and in the 19th century, by the way, they tried this. They reduced all the qualifications for various professions, law, medicine, teaching, and so forth. And they basically told people, look, the market will sort out the good ones from the bad ones. In the 20th century, they reversed that, and they decided that maybe it was a good idea to have licensing qualifications, exams, peer review, those types of things. So there's some experience that suggests that this is probably not a good strategy. Beyond that, there will be some areas of the school curriculum where a career specialist will be in demand. And I don't want to say great demand, but there will be some demand for it. And I'm thinking primarily the vocational subjects, which would be the old workplace specialist permit, essentially. So the vocational subjects, it's harder to get people who have teacher education experience who are also well versed in agriculture. Sorry, those two things just don't go together naturally, right? Having grown up on a farm, I know that, right? you know, so there's vocational subjects. Clearly, there's a demand. The sciences, it's possible. There's a shortage of science teachers. We have a hard time in the schools recruiting and retaining people in sciences and biology and physics and chemistry and so on. And the reason for that is because teaching is not competitive with the other job opportunities that they could have. And so schools often are scrambling. Some schools are scrambling to fill science positions. Now the schools that are scrambling usually are in rural areas or urban areas because they're not the most desired schools for people to teach in, you know, for any number of reasons. You know, having grown up on a farm, I'm all for living in a rural area, but most people who grew up in a city or in a suburb are not going to be as interested. And that's where most people grow up at this point. And so for a school in a more remote rural area, they may very well want to fill a science position with a career specialist. But chances are, if they had a choice, they would take someone who had gone through the usual traditional license path to becoming a teacher. So vocational subjects, science, math is the same issue with science, and perhaps foreign language. You know, and but otherwise, you know, for social studies, there's no shortage of social studies people. There's no shortage of English language arts people. There's no shortage of elementary education people. In some areas, it's hard to find people who are qualified for special education, similar to foreign language and math and science. But I think there it's because the turnover, the burnout is high.
Dr. Lazan also points out that the relevant work experience requirement could be interpreted too broadly, and more guidance may be needed to determine what type of experience will qualify for the permit. Well, this week, John Kane also sat down to speak with a local educator, but this time the topic was ballet. Here's this week's Eye on the Arts.
Hi, joining me for this edition of Eye on the Arts is Anna Rominger, who is a board member and secretary of the board of Indiana Ballet Theater. And I've known Anna for many, many years.
That's true.
From IUN and through other associations.
That's true.
Yeah, so you volunteer as a board member for Indiana Ballet Theater.
I do. I used to dance with them many, many years
Did
ago.
you?
Took dance lessons and enjoy it all. Enjoy what they do.
So for quite a long while you've been a board member, I think.
I was for a while and then wasn't, and been back for 2 or 3 years.
Well, that's good. And
So.
I know the big push has been with the ballet company to open a classical arts center in Crown Point on North Main.
Yes, very exciting opportunity. They're taking a historic building and repurposing that historic building to create an art center in the Crown Point area, which is very exciting for theater and dance troupes and possibly vocal groups, other kinds of musical and arts groups.
Yeah,
So
maybe South Shore Arts.
it could be.
Could be.
Yeah, that would be
so
great.
It's at 93rd and Main.
It is.
Old Nurses Home.
It is.
Residence, not a nursing home, but a
Yeah,
nurses
home.
Yeah, residence.
Yes.
So big old, beautiful brick building. And you're going to have an event there as a fundraiser.
We're having an event there on Saturday, July 12th. It's called Bastille Days. It runs from 12 to 7, and they're just having all kinds of events. Of course, there'll be people dancing. There'll be vendors. There'll be kids, various kids activities for children and all that. Also, all day long.
And food.
Food, lots of food.
Now, how was the ballet company drawn to Bastille Day as an event?
Well, they just finished doing Gay Parisian, and they did a French cafe scene, and it's a nice time of the year to do the can-can and all that. Just all fits in together, makes a nice theme.
And years ago, when Louis had Bon Appetit in Crown Point, Indiana Ballet Theater Company dancers performed.
Always came there, and it was wonderful, delightful. People loved to come.
Yeah, in the parking lot. But I also remember doing the chicken dance there, which is not necessarily French.
No.
I think that's more Crown Point than French.
Yes.
Well, good. So this will be a fundraiser and also an awareness raiser.
Yes, it's a fundraiser to assist with that building and for people to come and see what's already been done. The windows have been done. There's already designs for the building, the landscaping. So it's a really exciting opportunity. People can get to come and have fun and contribute at the same time.
Well, thank you, Anna, for coming to tell us about it. And thank you for watching. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Eye on the Arts.
This week, we were steaming things up in beautiful LaPorte, Indiana, exploring a unique, family-oriented venue, big with training acts and kids of all ages.
Thank you both.
We're in LaPorte, Indiana, riding the rails at the Heston Steam Museum on this week's Jump in the Lake. Ted Rita is the general manager of the Heston Steam Museum here in LaPorte, and this place has been around for a while, hasn't it?
About 56 years now. We had our 50th anniversary in '06, and it's just grown so much in the last 10 years especially. We're very proud of this museum. It is a very, we don't have any glass cases. Everything you see is out on display, and everything operates. That's the unique thing about this place. The place was founded in 1956 by John Idris of Michigan City, Indiana, when he bought a steam traction engine and brought it out here. And it's grown to include trains and all types of steam equipment. But really our mission is all the same. It's to create the most exciting learning experience in the area, and I think that's what we've done.
Ted, we've been looking at some really big equipment, but this is very small.
It really is, isn't it? So what this is a live steam locomotive. Some of these guys build these things from scratch, and it works just like the full-size counterpart. You have to shovel the coal into the fire. That burns.
With a very small shovel.
With a small shovel, and that burns, creates steam with the water that surrounds the fire, and that's fed into the cylinders. It's just like the full-size one.
Look at these rails.
They're only 7.5 inches apart.
I can touch them.
You can. So this train goes over a mile railroad that we have that goes through the woods, and it doesn't matter really how big of a kid you are. It's a great ride.
Yeah, and clearly it might be short in stature, but it's big on fun. You got a whole row of passengers.
It is,
back
and
here.
it really illustrates the power that steam has to move this whole train with a small engine.
We had so much fun at the Heston Steam Museum, and if you'd like to find out more about it, all you need to do is go to our website, lakeshorepublicmedia.org, look for the Jump in the Lake icon, click on it, and you can see the rest of our segment. Sarah, what are you working on for next week?
Well, of course, next Friday is the 4th of July, so with that coming holiday, we have a little bit of a patriotic Americana-themed show. I went over and spoke with some folks at the Civil Air Patrol about how they help out with search and rescue and crisis situations here in the region and the history of their group. And speaking of history, I know Hillary's got a little bit of a piece coming up with that, right?
Definitely, again, with talking with Reverend Jesse Jackson and also a couple of other local leaders about civil rights, which is also a form of independence. So we're definitely going to be focusing on that, but we also want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions, concerns. You can send your thoughts to tvfeedback@lakeshorepublicmedia.org, and you can also tweet us at Lakeshore Report. We want to know what people are doing for Independence Day.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next week on Lakeshore Report.